Dateline Mystery.
The reunited couple. Beautiful, historic Charleston, South Carolina is the very epitome of Southern charm. Known as the Holy City for its many churches, it's home to some of America's oldest, wealthiest blue-blooded families, with a reputation for being the best-mannered place in the country. But on February 18th, 1987, the peace is violently shattered. Carol Branson's estranged husband wants her dead.
I gotta get out of here.
Her daughter, Rhonda, traumatized and confused, worries for her father, but is devastated by what he's done to her mom. Carol Branson has been shot 6 times.
You're alive. You're okay.
I just knelt down next to her so that I could at least see if her eyes were open. And I saw his car take off down the road at a very high rate of speed.
Carol has been living in fear of her ex.
Carol has an order of protection against this man. She's afraid of him. She didn't want him anywhere near her or her daughter.
Rhonda's seen him assault her mom numerous times. Despite the violence, he's still her dad.
Sir, where's my dad?
I think that there was a really precious man in there somewhere. But generations of abuse and alcohol just took its toll on him.
A detective soon reveals devastating news.
He said her father's dead. He's actually committed suicide and shot himself in the face, and he's gone. I'm a little girl, and this is my dad. This is my daddy.
The officer also warns that her mother may never recover.
And your mom, we don't know if she's going to make it. I mean, any one of those shots should have, by all accounts, caused her death. I mean, the femoral artery alone, the blood loss was significant.
For days, Carol hovers between life and death. Finally, doctors manage to stabilize her. And a week after Rhonda's world was turned upside down, she at last gets the chance to see her mom.
Mommy?
I was stunned by how swollen her body was, and I just thought, oh my God. She couldn't talk, but she could look with her eyes and, blink and that kind of thing.
Love you, Mommy.
The road to recovery is long and painful. Carol has lost the sight in one eye. She needs months of help from Rhonda and physical therapy to regain her mobility.
I took on responsibility of this is just what you had to do. I had to bathe her and walk to the grocery store, because she couldn't drive.
8 long years later, having recovered from most of her injuries, Carol receives devastating news. The blood transfused into her body to save her life was tainted.
Carol's just found out she has hepatitis C, so it's yet another setback in this life that she's led, just another tragedy.
She was very bitter. I remember her saying to a family member, I just can't get away from this guy. He's killing me all over again.
Carol refuses to let the disease dominate her life and once more becomes a working mom, starting a job as a customer service rep for a cable company. In the summer of 2000, 13 years after that infamous day, a chance call transforms her life once more.
She said, "You're not going to believe this." And I said, What is it? And she said that she was at work and she gets a phone call and he tells her his name and she says, "Is this the same Reggie Sumner that went to Garrett High School in 1962? And he said, "Yes."
Reggie had been Carol's first love.
Oh my gosh, she was like a schoolgirl. She said that Reggie was the kid who walked down the halls that all the girls whispered about. There wasn't a prettier couple that should have been together.
All these years later, their romance is rekindled, and Carol and Reggie are soon very much in love.
She was 16 again. They picked up on their first date right there in the halls of their high school, walking past one another, making eyes, you know, back in 1962.
Six months later, Carol and Reggie marry. Finally, she has found peace and happiness with the man of her dreams.
I thought he was perfect for her. They had stepped back in time as if nothing in their past had happened. I think that for each of them, they were each just a breath of fresh air. I remember her telling me that she had never seen so much color before. You know, that the sun was brighter, the trees were greener. I mean, something truly awoke in her.
The happy couple moved south to Jacksonville, Florida, where Reggie has a second home. Rhonda, who's now a young mom, regularly keeps in touch by phone. Then, suddenly, in July 2005, Rhonda's calls go unanswered.
I haven't spoken to my mother in several days, and that's very bizarre.
Each time Rhonda calls, she gets the answering machine.
Hello, it's me. Is anybody home? Hello? Okay, call me back.
Rhonda keeps calling, day after day.
It's 2:45 on Sunday. I've been calling. I don't know what's going on, but please give me a call. Let me know that everything's okay. Mother, answer the phone. Are you there? Reggie, pick up the phone.
Not hearing from them for a week, Rhonda drives to Jacksonville in a panic. When she arrives, Carol and Reggie's car is gone, and there are ominous signs something is wrong. Her mother keeps a tidy house, yet dirty dishes have clearly been lying around for days. And if she's gone on a trip, why would her cell phone, purse, and medicine be left behind? And that's not all.
They would have never left Mikey. She took him everywhere. And the fact that her items are here and the dog is here tells me immediately that something has gone awry.
Rhonda files a missing persons report and then heads straight to a local television station where Carol and Reggie's mysterious disappearance becomes headline news.
Family says Carol and Reggie Sumner now 4 days without life-saving medication.
She's very ill, and her husband is very ill as well.
So ill that family says there is no way they would have just taken off.
Because everything is so just left, you know, as is. I believe that either they were taken or lured. They were very, very trusting. We don't care who you are. We don't care anything about you. Send them home. They can't live without their medicine.
Suddenly, it seems like Rhonda's prayers have been answered. A couple claiming to be Reggie and Carol call police and say they're alive and well.
My name is Reggie Sumner. I'm out of town with my wife right now.
But the investigation is far from over. In fact, it's only just starting, as what Rhonda and officers will soon discover is so harrowing and terrifying, it will scar them for life. In Jacksonville, Florida, Rhonda Alford has organized a media blitz to drum up publicity.
I believe that either they were taken or lured.
She desperately hopes someone knows what's happened to her mother, Carol, and stepfather, Reggie, now missing for a week. Rhonda starts imagining the worst.
I sort of envisioned someone kidnapping them for money, maybe driving them to an ATM machine for money, and then dumping them in the woods somewhere. They're somewhere and someone has them, and I just want to get them back.
Rhonda's vision turns prophetic when police discover someone is using their ATM card. Cash has been withdrawn in Jacksonville, northern Florida, and now back where they used to live in Charleston, South Carolina.
I heard from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office that an elderly couple that was missing in their area, their bank cards had been used at an ATM at a nearby hotel.
Banks provide police with ATM surveillance photos, which show a young man getting cash from the Sumner's bank account. And that man is definitely not Reggie Sumner.
All we know is that people that should be home, barely able to move, are now missing, and that we know that a 20-something-year-old man is accessing their ATM.
Concern intensifies when the Sumner's Lincoln Town car is found in Baker County, Florida, an hour away from their Jacksonville home.
Backed into a secluded area off a dirt road near the end of that road. Battery was missing, and when we opened the trunk, we found 4 shovels and some duct tape. It very definitely led me to believe that we were dealing with something that involved foul play at this point. Very concerned with where the Sumners could be and what had happened to them.
The case is changing by the minute when Detective Meacham receives surprising news.
I receive a call from our dispatchers advising me that they've received a phone call from someone identifying himself as Reggie Sumner.
My name is Reggie Sumner. I'm out of town with my wife right now.
The man also allows the police to speak with a woman claiming to be Carol.
Is this Carol?
Yes, that is.
The couple wants to convince police that they are alive and well, so bank cards they've been using extensively can be reactivated. The police immediately bring in Rhonda to listen to the recording.
My name is Reggie Sumner. Where are you at? We're in Delaware right now. And what city is that in? It's Corpus. Corpus, Delaware? Yes, sir.
But there is no Corpus, Delaware.
Is this Carol?
Yes, that is.
Okay, this is Detective Meacham with the Sheriff's Office. How are you doing tonight?
I was sleeping.
I understand. I understand that you may have some health problems.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other problems?
I'm really tired right now.
That's not my mom. And that's not Reggie.
Disturbingly, the callers seem to know all about the missing couple.
What kind of problems do you have?
Cancer
Cancer?
and liver.
Carol's hepatitis has turned to liver cancer, and Reggie has debilitating diabetes that needs to be regulated with medication. He recently broke a leg and spends most of his time in bed or in a wheelchair.
They weren't ambulatory people that would disappear for a long period of time without somebody knowing where they were.
Investigators decide a money trail will help them catch the imposters.
I called the credit union and I asked them to reactivate the cards so that the suspects were in the area. We'd be able to track their movements by how they used the transaction cards that belonged to the victims of the case.
Police trace the cell phone number being used by the man claiming to be Reggie.
We find it's registered to an alias name with a bad address. It's been used in the South Carolina and the Charleston area.
One of the numbers called is to a rental car agency in Charleston, South Carolina, that's missing a silver sports car.
Found out that they had 2 in their inventory, and 1 was past due to be returned to the rental company. And on that rental agreement, the car had been rented to Tiffany Cole.
Police discovered Tiffany Cole was a neighbor of the Sumners when they lived in South Carolina. Investigators learned the Sumners had been kind and generous to their neighbor.
She purchased a vehicle from them. She paid them part of the money, but not all of it.
Cole's a high school dropout who's lived a troubled life. Her father was in jail when she was born to her 16-year-old unmarried mother.
Having her dad in prison during some of her critical developmental years, she didn't have the opportunity to develop an attachment and enjoy a reciprocal relationship with somebody whose job should have been to protect her and help her make her way through the world.
Instead, Cole is raised by a stepfather who enjoys being cruel to her. So cruel, he throws a puppy against a wall, breaking its neck right in front of her.
In that situation, probably at least 3 important things registered with her. One was the sheer violence and mean-spiritedness, the evil that can be perpetrated by people who are close to you. Second, she probably also experienced great fear. And finally, it may well have registered with Tiffany that people can do some genuinely evil things and not pay a consequence.
Here are your pills, Dad.
As a young teenager, she claims her father sexually abused her. She turns to drinking and drugs as relief from her emotional pain. Tiffany has what seems like her last chance at a warm, loving relationship when she falls for a young man who suffers from epileptic seizures.
I'm sorry, it's not going to work out.
What do you mean?
I'm sorry.
He breaks her heart and reinforces her belief that she should expect to be treated badly and let down by men. In May of 2005, Tiffany Cole is desperately searching for someone to care about her.
Hi.
And in an instant, she thinks she's found that someone. Michael Jackson is also instantly drawn to Tiffany Cole. And quickly, they are making out and getting high together.
In Michael Jackson, Tiffany probably experienced someone who spoke with her vocabulary, the vocabulary of making up rules as you go along.
Cole believes her bad boy is good for her.
You stole my stuff.
Yeah, so what? And there she saw somebody who wasn't going to be constrained by laws and social expectations. And that was probably very attractive to her.
Michael Jackson has a significant criminal history. He is a multiple-time convicted felon. He is on active probation for fraud. His mother was a drug addict. He grew up in the home of his grandmother, who did her best raising him. Yet he was a thief from a very young age.
Cole and Jackson discover they both have a love for the party life. Before long, they decide to take a road trip, stopping off in Myrtle Beach, then heading south to Jacksonville to meet up with Michael Jackson's best friend, Alan Wade. The couple crashes at Wade's mother's place until she tires of the constant partying and throws them out. With no place to go and having spent all their money on booze and drugs, Tiffany remembers her former neighbors, the Sumners, lived close by.
They look like they're home. Oh, they are.
Hello. Oh, Tiffany, what a great surprise.
Yes, this is my boyfriend, Michael.
Hi, Michael. I'm Carol. It's nice to meet you.
We got kicked out of our friend's house.
Oh, no. Well, then you just must stay with us.
Really?
Oh, yes, Reg, you'll be so excited. Come on in.
Detective Jim Rowan hunts down Tiffany Cole's brother.
A guy who's known locally to the police, sort of has a reputation for being a thug in the neighborhood where she lived. We explained to him that she may be in some trouble, involved in something major, and if he withheld any evidence or any information about it, he could be facing some serious consequences for that.
Her brother reveals Cole and Jackson are staying at a local hotel. Police prepare to storm their room. Are the real Reggie and Carol being held inside?
Hotel manager.
In July 2005, police in North Charleston, South Carolina, are about to storm 2 hotel rooms, hoping to free an elderly couple they believe is being held hostage.
Hotel manager.
We were hoping we would find the Sumners. Unfortunately, that's not what we found when we got to the room.
Police arrest their former neighbor, Tiffany Cole, her boyfriend, Michael Jackson, and his childhood friend, Alan Wade. Investigators quickly confirm their involvement in the Sumners' disappearance. Jackson is carrying the Sumners' ATM card. And inside the car Tiffany Cole bought from the Sumners is Reggie's prize coin collection.
We found that there were loads and loads of merchandise that looked like they had been recently purchased from retail stores, clothes and video games and computers. We also found, by looking in the room safe, all of the personal identification and banking documents belonging to the victims.
There's even a check for $8,000 made out to Alan Wade from the couple's joint account. So where are the Sumners? Investigators separate the 3 suspects and begin their interrogations. Alan Wade refuses to say anything. Michael Jackson and Tiffany Cole deny having anything to do with the Sumners' disappearance. But under intense pressure, Cole starts to reveal what happened when she and her lover were taken in by the Sumners.
We've really enjoyed it. We're lucky. We don't really have any worries. And the only thing that was worrying us was selling that old house, but we just sold it, and we did pretty well.
Yeah.
We actually made a profit of $99,000.
Wow, that's amazing.
All safely tucked away in the bank.
I'm so happy for you. We're just gonna
Describes to me that this was going to be a robbery to get information and money.
Was anybody else there?
Yeah.
Who?
Well, Bruce.
Bruce.
So we start talking to Alan, who offered us almost no information. But in asking just background questions of who he knew in Jacksonville or in McClenny, where he lived, I asked if he had any family or friends there. He said he had a cousin, Bruce, that lived there. And he provided Bruce Nixon as his full name.
18-year-old Bruce Nixon lives close to where the Sumners' Lincoln Town car is found. Without a criminal past, police know little about him. But it doesn't take long for them to track him down. When questioned, Nixon reveals to investigators far more about the robbery.
So whose idea was it?
Those are my keys. All right, guys, we have a great plan.
He says the four got together, and Jackson's running the show,
Bank account.
full of ideas for how to abduct and terrorize the Sumners.
Credit cards, PIN numbers.
Michael Jackson brought sort of the leadership to it, the moving force, the persuasive ability to bring people together, to coalesce, to join in this plan.
We also need a place where we can take them and scare the crap out of them. You're from around. What do you suggest? You're from around here. Well, come on, man. We need a place.
I know a place. Where do you want to go?
Tomorrow night. Let's do it.
Tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night.
All right. Why not today? Let's do tomorrow night. Tomorrow night.
Let's gotta plan it right.
Nixon leads the gang to an isolated spot he knows in neighboring Georgia, where they plan to scare the Sumners with the threat of being buried alive.
Michael Jackson clearly and repeatedly demonstrated his willingness to violate rules and to make up his own rules. And those two elements are the hallmarks of a sociopath.
What Cole and Wade do next is caught on a security camera.
They buy duct tape. They buy gloves so they don't leave fingerprints. They buy large industrial-sized saran wrap that they potentially could have used to tie up the Sumners.
Bruce Nixon confirms Tiffany Cole's role was to keep in touch with the Sumners, not as a true friend, but to gather intelligence for their twisted plan.
Tiffany Cole repeatedly makes phone calls to the Sumner home to determine what would be the best time to do this crime. They wait till July 8th of 2005, where under cover of darkness, approximately 10 o'clock at night, they drive up to the Sumner home.
Yes.
Hi, our car broke down and we were wondering if we could use your phone.
Well, of course you can. Come on in. Here's the phone, boys. Help yourselves.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Shut up! Shut up!
They have a toy gun, and they immediately begin to tie up the Sumners.
Please. My husband's ill.
You could
Please
have
don't
anything. Don't do this. No. You won't be needing me anymore.
What are you doing?
It'll be a little dark. Just for a little bit. I'm in. Watch him. I'm going to go watch the house.
They begin to go through the house looking for stuff.
Bruce Nixon says that Carol Sumner is wailing, and he's screaming at her to be quiet or she's going to end up dead. He says Reggie Sumner is trying to help his wife, trying to resist in whatever feeble way he can these perpetrators. They repeatedly tell the Sumners to be quiet or they're going to end up dead. And the Sumners' screams turn to whimpering cries of terror and fear.
Meanwhile, ringleader Michael Jackson and his girlfriend Tiffany Cole wait outside. A text message states all is going according to plan.
They call Michael, and he comes in to help them find what they're looking for, which is bank cards and cash and those sorts of things.
Bruce Nixon shows a brief moment of humanity.
What?
Please, some water. Please.
Okay. Here's your water. That's enough. Get him out of here.
After bagging all of the Sumners' valuables, the gang prepares to drive the couple to a secret hideaway. For the frail couple, it's a terrifying and sweltering 40-minute journey into the unknown.
That was probably 100 or something degrees inside that Lincoln Town Car. The sweat allowed the duct tape to come loose, and when Bruce Nixon popped the trunk, he saw Carol and Reggie embracing each other in that trunk.
Tape came off. Put it back on now.
We'll give you anything you want.
I've never seen a premeditated crime that sought out such vulnerable victims and with such disregard for human life.
We'll do anything, please.
While the Sumners plead for their lives, Cole and Nixon wait nearby.
If you're going to steal $100,000 from someone's bank account and you're doing it with an ATM card, it's going to take you a long time to bleed that bank account dry. So the only way to accomplish this crime is to assume the Sumner identity. The only way to assume the Sumner identity is to make sure they're not around to report the crime.
Give us the PIN number, or you are going to die here tonight.
516.
Jackson gets all the information he needs. Still, he decides to show no mercy and orders Alan Wade to help him bury the Sumners alive.
You have to be evil to do something like this. This is an elderly couple, generous people, wouldn't hurt anybody, would have probably given them money had they been asked, but they weren't. Placed in a hole and buried alive for bank account numbers to get money. It's barbaric.
To bury them alive, they had to have completely emotionally separated themselves from their victim's hideous experience and focused on it just as if they were going up to the lunch counter to order lunch from a menu.
I can't imagine the terror that the Sumners felt from the moment this thing began, but especially when they got to that gravesite and they realized what really was going to happen to them. You know, here Reggie is seeing the love of his life be buried alive, and Carol's seeing the same thing, and they're both powerless to stop it. And to me, it's one of the worst possible ways I can think of to go.
The only thing left on the minds of the killers is to get rid of the evidence and start cashing in on their despicable crime.
We're good.
Michael Jackson claims that Wade and Nixon were the ringleaders, and he was more of a criminal consultant.
Oh, yeah, I told him you gloves. I said, hey, make sure you had gloves on your damn hand. You know what I'm saying? That's common sense. You don't go in anybody's house, man. Even if you just pull in a burglary, you know what I'm saying? Even if nobody's home.
So you told Alan and Bruce to put gloves on before they went in the house?
My words were, if you're going to use this, don't leave no fingerprints.
Did Bruce or Alan have a gun?
Yeah, they had a damn toy gun.
Michael Jackson was the leader. He was the leader because he controlled the money. Captain of the pirate ship doesn't hand all the money to one of the subordinates. So Michael Jackson had the card. He was making the calls in this case. He was the one calling the shots.
The gang dumps the Sumners' Lincoln Town Car before heading for another ATM machine to get their hands on more of the Sumners' savings. Then Cole and Wade head back to the Sumners' house to steal whatever else they can find. Jackson gives Bruce Nixon a few $100s and tells him to return home and keep his mouth shut. Something detectives discover he's unable to do.
Bruce Nixon actually was bragging about his role in this crime and flashing money and telling all his buddies that he has a new job, and that new job is to murder people.
Now in custody, Bruce Nixon agrees to lead police to the grisly crime scene. What happened next has never been shown on television. Until now. Investigators from Jacksonville, Florida, are led by murder suspect Bruce Nixon to an isolated spot in Charlton County, Georgia. Nixon claims after a night of torment, this is where Carol and Reggie Sumner were buried alive. This is the first time what happened next has been shown on television.
Bruce was, I think, wanting to do the right thing. I think he wanted to get it off his chest. When we got to the grave, I think he just sort of wanted to fall on his knees, so to speak, and say, let me tell it. Let me tell what I do know.
Well, you sometimes end up in the wrong places at the wrong time. But, you know, you've done the right thing. You've done the right thing by all means.
Bruce, is there anything else around here that they threw out that we need to be aware of? Or died? Everything on those.
I know you are. Where were you when this happened?
Out at the road.
You were at the road? Did you walk back here?
Huh?
You had to know where this was at.
I know. I told them. They said all they were going to do was scan him.
The little man was put in the hole first, and then the little lady was put in behind him, and she was grabbing him around the waist and the chest, and they covered him up. They were placed in a hole and covered up while they were still breathing.
Bruce Nixon is somewhat apart from the other three players. He's the one who cooperates foremost with the authorities. He is weeping. He is sobbing. That can come from only one place. He had a shred of a conscience.
The next day, investigators arrive to recover the bodies.
Lots of people from a lot of agencies were out there to help dig the Sumners out. The grave was such that they started digging by shovel until they located where the bodies were. They ended up bringing a backhoe in. When they get the Sumners, get down to the level where they can see them, they can see their duct tape. Reggie is sitting in front of Carol like bobsledders, one in front of the other. He's broken the bonds of his tape, and he's holding her hand. Very upsetting, very upsetting. Talking with the veteran guys at that scene, said it was dead silence. There wasn't a word spoken. And they were mad. And I've spent the last 10 years in homicide. It was very heartbreaking to see.
The autopsy reveals the couple died with excruciating suffering.
The mud gets thrown shovel by shovel, first coming towards their legs and up their waist, and as they come towards their chest wall, then they start to experience this anxiety in order to breathe and get the air into their organs. Despite the fact they couldn't breathe, their mouth and their nose were open and trying to breathe, so they inhaled the dirt that they were surrounded in. The pathologist found this mud in their airways and in the esophagus, which is the food pipe. So they were alive. This is the absolute worst I have ever seen or heard of this type of death. I've never seen something like this. Horrendous is the only way one can describe this, the type of death these two people suffered.
Michael Jackson takes a jailhouse call from his grandmother, who reveals that the police know everything.
Michael, listen to me and don't say a word. You're in the newspaper, all over the newspaper, yesterday and today. For what? Murder. What? Murder. Bodies ID'd as former South Carolina couple, James and Carol Sumner. Bail was denied for 18-year-old Bruce Nixon of Florida, who was arrested and charged with murder, home invasion, robbery, and kidnapping. He took them to the grave site and everything.
Oh my God, man. Are you kidding me?
It's right here in today's paper.
You took them to that spot? Because you showed them where the spot was at.
Yes, dear.
Bruce just killed us all.
All four suspects are charged with the premeditated murders of Carol and Reggie Sumner.
The primary focus was to get Michael Jackson on death row. He was the leader. That was the first goal of the case. Obviously, when you bury two people alive in such a premeditated fashion, the death penalty